Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again this Friday for the UC Davis Team Research Forum. Today we have a slightly different version of our usual forum. We have a lot of guests from outside of UC Davis. So if you are able to edit your name as it shows in the participant list, just to add in brackets what institution you're joining us from, that would be super helpful for everyone. We have a relatively longer program that we usually have. So presentations are going to go on for almost an hour. And then we're going to have an open-ended Q&A session that we're going to let run through noon or until we run out of questions. Just a reminder to everyone to please mute your microphones if you're not the speaker. It'll help with bandwidth and it'll help just keep the background noise to a minimum. If you're not a speaker, I also recommend that you just turn off your video. Just helps with the quality of the video that you're going to be seeing. Please feel free to post your questions to the chat box as the presentations progress. Our team is in the background if you have any questions. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Professor Christina Davis, our recently appointed Associate Vice Chancellor for Interdisciplinary and Research and Strategic Initiatives at the Office of Research, who's going to be our host today. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ana Lucia, for putting this together. I'm really delighted to have this crowd together today to talk about team research. So team research is really a part of UC Davis's DNA. We're one of the most interdisciplinary and collaborative R1 research universities in the country. Our research portfolio spans almost all disciplines. It is creating lasting societal impact from our research, and that's one of our goals. And so it's very complementary with what we're here to talk about today. UC Davis has been engaged in high bar research in the High Bar Research Alliance since its inception back in 2017. And we're also part of the governing council. Back in April of 2021, we worked with our High Bar Research Alliance colleagues to organize and host a session focused on breakthrough strategies to accelerate team reach research, and with a particular focus on COVID-19 research, very timely because of the pandemic. Since then, we've had multiple opportunities to engage with the High Bar Research Alliance in small groups. And so we wanted to introduce this initiative to a broader range of faculty and researchers on our campus. So we're delighted to have everybody here with us today. In particular, we're focusing on the importance of publicly engaged scholarship and community partnerships towards achieving highly integrated and responsive research. So with that, I'm going to introduce Lauren Whitehead, who is the director of the High Bar Research Alliance. He is at the University of British Columbia's special advisor on entrepreneurship, innovation, and research. And he's also a professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy. He's held several administrative positions, including associate dean, dean pro tem. He was a VP and academic provost and leader of education innovation. He holds 143 US patents, which is very impressive. As an engineer, that's kind of stunning. And these have applications all over in computer screens, televisions, lighting products, and he has also launched several startup companies. He's deeply committed to the topics that we're talking about today. So with that, I will turn it over to Lauren.
Thank you very much, Christina. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I will be really quite brief because obviously the most important discussions are going to happen after these introductory remarks. But I would like to, I think it may be helpful to answer four basic questions. What is High Bar Research? What is the High Bar Research Alliance, and especially UC Davis's role in it? And really the focus would be the third question. What are the key aspects of cross-sectoral partnerships in high bar research? And then lastly, what steps can institutions take to enable these cross-sectoral high bar partnerships? But these are really just opening introductory remarks. So to answer the question, what is high bar research? Well, as you know, it's an acronym for highly integrative, basic, and responsive. And essentially for a project to be considered a high bar project, it has to have two key dualities. And these are a duality of leadership and a duality of purpose. So in terms of leadership, the key thing about a high bar project is that it is led by collaborative teams that make key decisions together, and those teams comprise both academic experts and experts outside the academic system. So that's the duality of leadership. The second duality of purpose, is simply this: high bar projects are basic in the sense that they are intended to create new knowledge, and they are responsive in the sense that they are intended to help solve societal problems. So it's having those two dualities together that generate that idea of a high bar research project. This isn't rare, but it's a very synergistic situation when you can have it. So another way to describe this, maybe what I've just said, just with slightly different words, is that high bar research projects are characterized by trans-sectoral co-leadership of use-inspired basic research. That's using language that's not uncommon, for example, with NSF. The only trouble with that is that the acronym for trans-sectoral co-leadership of use-inspired basic research is CCLUIBR. It's hard to pronounce, and so we're sticking with high bar for now. But the word isn't important. The key thing is it's these dual synergies that are very important to making powerful and highly productive work. So then what's the purpose of the High Bar Research Alliance? Well, it's a gathering of people that kind of self-assembled because of their shared belief in the importance of this kind of research. So the HRA is a volunteer-driven collaboration of individuals and organizations, and they basically believe that universities can and should engage more effectively with the research and innovation ecosystem as a whole in ways that strengthen academic excellence while also addressing the needs of society. So the mission of the HRA is essentially to catalyze significant expansion of high bar research, not at the expense of anything else, because high bar research is very collaborative with compatible with the things we already believe in a great university. But there are issues. And so the HRA is trying to tackle issues that may inadvertently disincentivize high bar research. For example, some practices of promotion, tenure, and peer review unintentionally discourage faculty members from carrying out high bar research. So there's a need for what we consider to be a gentle shift in the culture of the university system. And I should say, very importantly, UC Davis is a leader in this shift. So we're not here in any way to suggest that there's anything wrong with UC Davis, quite the opposite. It's a leader, but together we all interact in a system that as a whole has to shift, because so many of the factors that affect, for example, peer review take place outside our own universities. So we're hoping to improve not just our own universities, but the university system as a whole through a combination of bottom-up, top-down, and cross-sectoral efforts. So just a little bit about the HRA. The HRA consists of 12 institutional members and 7 institutional affiliates. Now, at the moment, we're open to growing, and we may grow more, but maybe most importantly, any individual who wishes to participate in the HRA in any way at all is welcome to do so. So it's not in any way closed, but the support of the organization, which is so essential for it to work well, is sourced within these key members. And UC Davis is a prominent member. As already mentioned, it joined the HRA just shortly after it was founded in 2018. And so it is currently one of the 12 governing member universities. And I can't remember, Christina, if you mentioned this, but you're in your role as Associate Vice Chancellor for Interdisciplinary Research and Strategic Initiatives. You're a very welcome and valued member of the Governance Council. So the HRA is inviting individuals from all areas of research and the innovation ecosystem to participate in activities. And today's discussion is a beautiful example, and Scott will, in just a moment, add a little bit more information to that. But now I'd just like to wrap up with a couple of points about the nature of cross-sectoral partnerships in high bar projects. So partnerships between university researchers and individuals in external industry, government, and civil society and communities of practice are extremely important. And in particular, there's an aspect of partnership that we like to stress with regard to high bar research. And I'll just briefly review those quickly now. So one of the key distinguishing characteristics of the kind of cross-sectoral partnership that we're thinking of is that the partners share the dual goals of high bar research, which are the goals of discovery and societal benefit. So even though they're in different places and they might see a different emphasis on those two different aspects, together they deeply believe in them both. And together, very importantly, they co-lead the research. That is, they're active together in all phases of the research. And also, when you think about leadership, often a big part of leadership, not the only one, but a big one, is making good decisions. And in high bar partnerships, those decisions are made collectively. Individuals from different places may contribute differently, but collectively they strongly feel that they're making the decisions together. And these things really matter because, as I think we all know, decisions, good decisions, lead to good outcomes. And so it's not a minor point, it's a major point that this collaborative spirit can yield better decisions that actually lead better success. And again, nothing that I'm saying here is new. So for example, this nature of co-decision making is often called co-production or co-creation. It's not a new idea, but it is an important component of the overall high bar idea. And I'm just going to wrap up before handing over to Scott Slovak by just emphasizing that overall our aim is to identify good practices that can help to bolster high bar research. And so many of those good practices will be apparent in the discussions we have today about research partnerships in general. So we're just getting started in that process, and we're certainly looking forward to today's discussions being a major component of helping us to move all together to move forward on this. So that's about all that I was going to say, just as an introduction. And now it's my pleasure to hand over to Scott Slovak. Now, Scott is in the key role of Associate Director of the High Bar Research Alliance. And in that capacity, he does many things, including running our, I believe, our excellent webinar program, which we invite all of you to have a look at when you visit our website. And in his role as a faculty member, he's a professor at the University of Idaho, and his expertise is in environmental humanities, which is a very interesting example of a field that's almost intrinsically high bar in nature. So on that note, I'd like to wrap up, and if it's okay, Scott, I will hand over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Lauren, and good morning, everyone. And what I would like to do this morning is tell you a little bit about the collaborative action groups, or CAGs, CAGs, that do much of the work for the High Bar Research Alliance. And in particular, one of the reasons we're very happy to share information with all of you about the High Bar Research Alliance is that we're eager to have more people join us and participate in our activities. And one way of engaging with the activities of the HRA would be to participate in one of the CAGs that especially appeals to you. At present, we have 5 of these groups, and the first is devoted to making changes in the academic incentive system to encourage high bar research. The goal of this group, the Academic Incentive Systems CAG, is to help universities better reflect their social contract with stakeholders by aligning academic incentive systems, specifically with regard to promotion and tenure processes, to encourage more and better high bar research. And as an initial task, participants in this CAG interviewed people at all levels within the promotion and tenure system at different universities and in different fields to identify a number of barriers, existing barriers in the system that discourage faculty members from participating in high bar projects or similar kinds of cross-sectoral research projects. And this group prepared a discussion paper that is intended to initiate thinking about the need for changes within the academic incentive system. So key ongoing activities for participants in this group are aimed at initiating generative discussions with people who are in a position to cause meaningful and lasting change. And this particular collaborative action group is currently developing a guide to help promotion and tenure committees recognize and appropriately value high-bar projects. And I'm sure they could use some more shoulders participating in this effort, leaning into this effort. The second collaborative action group I'd like to tell you about is one that I happen to chair. It's called Facilitating High-Bar Research Across the Disciplines. The goal of this group is to catalyze the creation of new high-bar research projects, in particular by promoting trans-sectoral collaborations within a variety of academic disciplines, not only within those disciplines that seem most obviously germane to high-bar activities. As Lauren mentioned a minute ago, one of the main things that we've been doing in this second collaborative action group is to offer a webinar series offering models of various types of high-bar work. Sometimes we've had primarily the academic researcher talking about the structure and the kind of the meta dimensions of the projects, not only the disciplinary nuts and bolts, but the high-bar features of this work. But we've also recently been trying to have speakers representing both the academic and the societal dimensions of the projects co-present these webinars. We've hosted 12 of the webinars so far, each one highlighting a particular high-bar project or high-bar related initiative. And these are all archived on the website of the HRA, which I believe is indicated in the chat box, as well as information in the chat box about the individual collaborative action groups, if any of you happen to be interested in specific aspects of what we're doing. Another thing that the second collaborative action group is trying to do is to organize research meetings related to a theme focused on a societal need in order to draw together potential research collaborators. And we've done these not only within individual institutions, but we've been increasingly trying to do this with multiple institutions involved as a way of generating interactions and networking possibilities. The third collaborative action group is oriented toward cooperating with other organizations to encourage high-bar research. The HRA is actually a fairly small organization, but it can cooperate with other related groups in order to expand its reach and achieve its objectives. So the goal of this third group is to identify and nurture the relationships needed to promote cross-organizational cooperation. One recent example of our efforts is to develop a collaborative partnership with the National Academy of Inventors. The NAI aims to honor inventors at universities who patent their discoveries and stimulate the economy by bringing their products to the marketplace. And the NAI and the HRA are trying to work together in different ways to accelerate development and application of breakthrough knowledge. Participants in this third collaborative action group are brainstorming together and developing a list and beginning to reach out to various organizations that could make fruitful partners with the HRA. The fourth collaborative action group is concerned with building awareness and understanding of high-bar research. The goal of this group is to build widespread awareness, understanding, and appreciation of the value of high-bar research arising from the combination of its special characteristics that Lauren described a few minutes ago. So the showcasing of stories of high-bar successes is a key activity of this collaborative action group, and members of the group are attempting to come up with ways to showcase this work and inspire more of this work in the future. And finally, the fifth collaborative action group is focused on developing and sharing metrics and assessment for high-bar research. I should say we currently have 5 of these groups, but we've been adding new groups as certain needs come to the attention of the management committee of the organization. So there may well be other groups developing in the future. Many HRA discussions have highlighted the need for identifying, quantifying, and tracking both the number and quality of high-bar projects, as well as accurately assessing their societal and scholarly value. This is the newest of the collaborative action groups, and its activities are just getting underway. But what this fifth group is hoping to do is to develop a toolkit and a list of resources about how to assess cross-sectoral partnerships that will be a key activity of the collaborative action group. So as I mentioned, information about the individual collaborative action groups is available in the chat box. And this is, if any of you are interested in becoming involved actively in the High Bar Research Alliance, one way to do so would be to identify a collaborative action group that you'd like to join and attend our meetings and suggest other work that we can be doing within the CAGs. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Scott. As we go into the second part of our session, we want to hear from some of the different research centers and initiatives at UC Davis that are engaging in what we call high bar research. So more specifically, we're going to hear from some research groups that are strongly engaged in community partnerships and publicly engaged scholarship as a means to create impact and research for our communities and with different stakeholder groups. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Bernadette Austin, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Regional Change, along with Dr. Catherine Brinkley, who is the Faculty Director for the Center for Regional Change and a Professor of Community and Regional Development. They'll speak first. Secondly, we also have Dr. Isabel Montañez, who is a distinguished professor in Earth and Planetary Sciences, and she's also the director of the Institute for the Environment here at UC Davis. Then we'll get to hear from Dr. Sarah Mccullough, who is the Associate Director of the Feminist Research Institute. And then finally, Dr. Tessa Hill, who is the Associate Vice Provost of Academic Programs for the Office of Public Scholarship and Engagement here at UC Davis. And she's actively engaged with the High Bar Research Alliance. So I want to thank everybody again. And with that, I'll turn it over to Catherine and Bernadette for their presentation.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Just bear with me while I set this slideshow up. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Joined here by the co-lead of our center, Catherine Brinkley, and you gave us some lovely introductions, so I'll just continue on. So a little bit about the Center for Regional Change. We're housed under the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, and we work on a variety of human sciences topic. As you can see, we really focus on innovative, collaborative, and action-oriented research. We work across a variety of sectors and disciplines as far as the type of external partners that we partner with. And ultimately, the goal of our research is to support the building of healthy, equitable, prosperous, and sustainable regions. At the core of what we do is social equity. So you can see just a handful of some of the various fields and disciplines we work in and with. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that in the Q&A. So this particular slide shows the sort of diversity of topic areas and ways we approach research. So Dr. Brinkley is going to get into greater detail about some of the example projects, but these are a few here. So we're going to talk about how we approach community-engaged, policy-oriented, and equity-focused research, working from the perspective of just creating tools that can be of use to policymakers and advocates, to co-creating with advisory boards, such as the TJAG listed here, and then moving on to more action-oriented and co-created research. We'll also talk briefly about some of the program that we lead that engages students who are interested in this type of work moving forward. And then after our presentation, I'll put into the chat some of the links to some of these projects. And with that, I'll carry on and send you over to my colleague, Catherine.
All right. Thank you, Bernadette. Every single research project we take on has a community partner. So we've been doing this for 15 years, and there's so many different ways to do it. So these projects will just kind of give you a glimpse of different styles of working. So we have data, and we believe in data democracy. So we make almost all of our data publicly available, and we build portals like this beta portal here, where you can search across all of California's city and county general plans. And these are plans that are collaboratively produced in every city and county, which set where housing goes, where transportation goes, a focus on health, new focus on environmental justice. And we're partnering with state agencies like the California Air Resources Board to evaluate community level plans and then to provide technical assistance and convening working groups as cities and counties, particularly those in more rural or less funded areas, are thinking about how to revise their plans to come into compliance with state mandates, but also how to build on a lot of their unique strengths. So I encourage you all to just take a look at this portal, and we have others like it, like the Regional Opportunity Index, which recombines education data and census data, and that portal in particular was useful for the state building their own portal looking at health impacts and how to target greenhouse gas emission funding. So this is another project that we've been working on. Bernadette has led this project and from the CRC, and we work with centers across California, so USC Price and Occidental College. And there's a lot of really awesome data that is complicated, because what this project is looking at is folks who are migrating away from really expensive places to live into the Central Valley, driving up the cost of housing and displacing people. And this is all over the COVID-19 pandemic, the start and ongoing development of that. And a lot of the findings have drawn a lot of attention, not only from the communities who are impacted, both the large cities who are losing folks and the smaller cities who are accommodating folks, but also media. So we do a lot of work with media in telling this story and thinking about what can policy makers do to get in front of this very fast-moving shift as traffic patterns are bouncing back from telecommuting to people just deciding to live somewhere else and still commuting long distances. And then this project was rolled out at Yolo County this month, which is very exciting. And this is a project that started in the classroom. And this is another, I think, strength of the Center for Regional Change is we often are kind of a career pipeline for students that come from the Central Valley and want to go back to the Central Valley. And a lot of the engaged faculty that work with the center work with students on projects that are close to home and that have the opportunity for internship programs and feeding back into jobs after. And this project is one of those that's even closer to home because it's Yolo County. So it started in a classroom. We partnered with the county when they had no funding for this project just yet, but they had a plan. And the idea was they wanted to give every family that was experiencing homelessness and had children under the age of 5 a basic income that would boost them above the California poverty measurement, which is a big deal. They were successful in gathering that funding, and we are partnering with them, taking that, what started as a classroom project, a low-cost kind of feasibility effort, into program evaluation. So we will be evaluating not the economic impacts, but the health impacts on children who are in families who are receiving these funds and have a better chance, we hope, of staying housed during the pandemic, and perhaps improved health care and chance to spend more time with their caregivers. So we are building off of that with NIH grants, NSF grants as well. So that whole pipeline of community engaged research, classroom, student engagement, and then seeking funding to further the research side of it. Another strength that we have at the Center for Regional Change is working with youth. And this is work that many of our colleagues, Nancy Erbstein in particular with the School of Education, has built over the past several decades. So I encourage you to take a look at the links that Bernadette will drop in the chat very soon. There are projects that the Center for Regional Change has worked on nationwide. A lot of them, of course, are in California and in the Central Valley. And we have models for engagement. We have an excellent youth community engagement coordinator, Brandon Louie, who's very skilled at working with middle school, high school age students, piloting classroom projects that often dovetail with civic projects to bring youth into here's how Here's how you can engage with your local government. Here's how you can make change, which is very exciting for them. And this website that we have details a pretty simple stepping stone plan for engagement with youth and for classroom projects. And then we're hoping to build on this to dovetail undergrad and grad level courses to provide data and analysis and evaluation pieces to supporting youth efforts. So we're working with our Ag Extension partners on those opportunities, and welcome more opportunities. These pieces are often very important, particularly for junior faculty who are going after NSF career grants that want to see this type of engagement. And the Center for Regional Change is available with recharge and expertise to help.
And last but certainly not least.
And last but certainly not least, we have the Bradshaw Scholars Program. And this is a program that takes 10 to 15 undergrad graduate students and partners them with our ongoing cohort of community partners. We have a regional advisory committee, and then we work with many nonprofits and civic organizations throughout California, which is one of the benefits of just being embedded with long-term partnerships that you're continuously building off of. Is we're not doing a project and going away, we are staying long-term, and the Bradshaw Scholars are a great way to keep up those ongoing relationships even when there may not be a grant or a big project to work on. So the scholars receive generous funding from the Cara family to support their engaged learning experience, and they work with our partners on individual projects, and then we get to come back and celebrate and learn from them, which will happen next month.
So that's basically it for our presentation. I'll drop our contact information in the chat, as well as links for more information about the work that we do. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll move on to our next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Isabel Montañez, the director of the UC Davis Institute of the Environment. And I'm looking to see if I have the clicking. Oh, there we go. So the Institute is in an organized research unit within the Office of Research, and it fosters collaboration between UC Davis faculty, researchers, and students across, integrating across disciplines and with non-academic partners. We strive to develop and innovate, we strive to develop and innovate or scale up innovative solutions and inform policy decisions on environmental and climate-related issues involving water, air, working and natural lands, terrestrial and ecosystems, of freshwater ecosystems, and public health. The Institute is the champion for the One Climate Initiative, a UC Davis big idea that supports research at the nexus of climate change, science, mitigation, and adaptation. And we're leading an effort to build a campus-wide climate coalition. So the Institute hosts several centers, including the Center for Watershed Sciences, the Center for Health and the Environment, and its affiliated Western Center for Agricultural Health and Safety, the Working Lands Innovation Center, the Center for Spatial Technologies and Remote Sensing, the USDA California Climate Hub, and the USGS Western Region Ecological Center. And it hosts 6 of the natural reserves sites that are managed by UC Davis. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of high bar research in the Institute. And the first is out of the Center for Watershed Sciences. It's the Salmon Ecosystem Rice Project. And this involves a collaboration between researchers, rice farmers in the Sacramento River Basin, and salmon conservation efforts with strong support from ag NGO communities. The work is restoring salmon populations that have been in decline in California, and it's developing in collaboration with these groups, best management practices for growers on rearing juvenile salmon in their winter flooded rice fields. And some preliminary evidence is suggesting that having salmon on the rice fields can actually reduce methane fluxes in the region, so sort of double duty. The Working Lands Innovation Center and associated Project Carbon is a multi-stakeholder consortium that it's testing the carbon and crop benefits of mineral biochar and kelp amendments to California's working lands. And this work is in partnership with state agencies, farmers, ranchers, tribes, nonprofit organizations, including the Native Conservancy and the Larta Institute, as well as industry partners. And our mission is to minimize barriers to adoption of climate smart interventions like soil amendments that can scale within and outside of California, driving the state towards negative carbon emissions. The third example is out of the Center for Health and the Environment, and they are characterizing air pollutant emissions of agricultural practices, common agricultural practices, and wildfire smoke, and their impact on the farm workers and the immediate area communities. This work is done in partnership with community groups out of the Imperial Valley and Central Valley, and engages high school students from those communities by bringing them as interns to UC Davis in the summer so that they can actually work on aspects of the research. The findings are translated to and used by advocacy and industrial groups and regulatory agencies to define agricultural best practices. So I'm going to wrap up by mentioning 3 resources that are at the Institute or being developed at the Institute that promote community engagement and public scholarship. The first is the newly launched Environmental and Climate Justice Hub. This is a consortium of existing efforts, including, for example, the Center for Regional Change, that are already on campus and very active in this area, by providing partnering, convening, and outreach opportunities that we hope as a consortium will allow us to elevate UC Davis as an environmental and climate justice focused campus. And one focus of the hub is building specific partnerships and projects focused on Indigenous environmental justice issues. The Institute's Sustainability Scholars Program provides support for undergraduates to partner with campus and community stakeholders for immersive, hands-on experiences addressing cutting-edge sustainability and environmental and climate justice issues. And finally, we are partnering with design faculty and others on campus and community and ag constituents to foster and support student learning opportunities, art installations, and community events like the one you see in the picture here that happened in March that spread awareness on climate change and inspire environmental activism. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was a wonderful talk. Our next speaker is Dr. Mccullough.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and also put up some slides here. Okay.
You have remote control, Sarah, if you just want to click on that.
Okay, great. Can you all see the slides now?
Sarah, your slides are not showing yet.
Got it. Okay, let me try that again. Thanks for your patience here. Okay, how are we doing now?
Looks great.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much. My name is Sarah Mccullough. I'm the Associate Director at the Feminist Research Institute. And, you know, I first just want to say that it is such a joy to be here at UC Davis working with these, you know, other amazing projects. And so what you'll hear from us is, you know, a lot of resonances with what others have shared, as well as, you know, sort of the particular take we're doing on this work. So first, I want to share that at the Feminist Research Institute, we are committed to moving many of the insights from feminist research along with other justice-based fields into new areas of research. And when we do this, the things that we're visioning, the things that we're valuing include one, intersectionality. So when we're thinking about what it means to do our research in a collaborative fashion and in an impactful fashion, we're always thinking about sex, gender, race, class, ability, sexuality, religion, and other sites of oppression in dialogue, like I won't even say dialogue, but really like as mutually constituting and working together in each other's lives. We also see the work and the research we do as fundamentally inclusive. And this really, I think, also speaks to the importance of high bar research. There has been historical inequities in whose voices count as more expert than others. And that's something we very much want to pay attention to, makes community engagement very important in a lot of the research we do. We also believe that the research we support should be justice oriented towards challenging historic structures of inequity, and ultimately should be transformational, enacting positive change to end systems of oppression. And I'll say this also includes, as you'll hear in a bit about, this also includes, challenges within the academic structures themselves. We have learned that there is a real strength in moving from value-based research, specifically because we have found that when people are sort of connecting around, in a sense, like the core, at the end, the core questions that are driving us, both as individuals, but also collectively, the collective challenges of our society, that those collaborations really hold together much better, and enables a group to overcome some of the challenges that often can surface. We do this by and other benefits of this is we're able to create equitable research cultures. And to us, this means changing what questions are asked, by whom, and why. And also the conditions under which people are working, what type of research is valued. I know people doing very important work around trying to change tenure and promotion processes to reflect this. We also see value-based research resulting in smarter partnerships that ultimately improves the knowledge base to solve these big global problems. And finally, we've also seen how this work improves recruitment and retention, particularly because it encourages and centers historically excluded expertise. And so the work we do, we see as working alongside and highly complementary of many of these really visionary ways of doing research that have gone, under the name, obviously, of high bar, but also team science, the grand challenges. One of the sort of lens I think that we bring through our work is that we also are bringing a fundamentally anti-racist approach to this work. So as I said, we feel that to really do this research well does require some transformation in the way that research culture currently functions. And so we have a model that we're working through to really enable this change to happen, to enable more researchers to be able to work with communities, with the other research centers you're hearing about today. And we start that first by providing an equity-centric research training that we call Asking Different Questions. And this is a training that really brings the insights from fields like feminist theory, also ethnic studies, indigenous studies, the study of science and culture, brings insights from decades of research in that field to be applied in research fields where these insights are not necessarily haven't necessarily been well transmitted and well communicated. And we see how when people learn about the relationship between histories of oppression and their own discipline, their own disciplinary norms, that this leads to a transformation in the type of research that they do. They create new collaborative projects. One great project we're working with right now looks at food security and Native Greenlanders in a way that is really centering the Inuit and other Native Greenlander populations in doing that, with the goal ultimately of changing policy around food safety measures to be more inclusive. We see many of these new collaborative projects also leading to new research experiences for students. Obviously, we heard about this from the CRC around their Bradshaw Scholars. We see this in many other areas as well. These projects also tend to have deeper community engagement. And that is also part of something that our training explicitly covers, is what does it mean? What is the sort of ways that we can move with communities with greater integrity, both for the creation of better knowledge and also for the needs and expertise of those in the community. And finally, we also are seeing how this work ultimately leads to greater retention of faculty and students, because they are, through this work, experiencing a research culture that they can really feel that they can belong to, that is not necessarily alienating, that is asking questions that are relevant to the communities from which they are coming. So I'll say briefly just a little bit to give you a sense of really what we're doing and asking different questions. What we're doing here is we're really trying to help people to recognize how are the histories of patriarchy, white supremacy, colonialism still resonant in the way that we do research. And we have found that this is vitally necessary often to break down the difference that sometimes we see between applied and basic science, between research expertise and community expertise. And here's just a few examples of some of the tenets that we teach and we share. One of these is we discuss the difference between sort of like a traditional notion of objectivity or scientific inquiry, where it is not necessarily change oriented, that knowledge is always neutral. And while, of course, there is a lot of value in that, we also see an immense amount of value in promoting change-oriented research. Obviously, this has huge implications when we look at climate sciences, but it also has to do with health and medicine as well. The graphic that you see on this is graffiti art from ACT UP, a group that engaged in early AIDS activism, and that ultimately, really got the ball rolling on conducting research and raising awareness about what was happening in the AIDS epidemic before the government and many researchers were necessarily really taking notice. So this is just an example of the type of research that historically has been conducted within communities that then leads to innovations within the academy. And so we see like the direction of expertise goes both ways. One of the other major tenets that we like to share and we think is really crucial for this type of research we're talking about today is recognizing what we call partial perspective, that depending on not only one's research training, but also one's life experience, the way that we look at particular research problems is going to differ. This is sort of just, exemplified in this image. These are all images of the same object. If you're at UC Davis, you'll know this is one of our eggheads in front of Shields Library. But each of these images, we see something very different. And this is, obviously something we recognize as crucially important in our research. We also need to think about it in relationship to lived experiences and how we work in collaboration with others. And I should say that this kind of is in a sense a contrast to the ways we often think about research as sort of being something that exists outside of our own experiences. So that kind of gives you a sense of the type of training that we're doing to better prepare people to work in collaboration across sites of difference. And now we are extending that work through a new program that we're working in collaboration with the Institute for Transportation Studies and the Energy Efficiency Institute, and hopefully many other areas on this campus and beyond, on an Environmental Justice Fellows program. This program brings environmental justice practitioners and leaders working across the state and the nation into dialogue with UC Davis researchers so that ultimately we can be doing research that is more directly applicable to communities and connecting both the researchers and the communities as a team with policymakers, legislators, so we can see the type of change that is needed in many of our communities. So thank you all, and I'll pass on the mic now.
Thank you so much. Our last speaker is Dr. Tessa Hill.
Okay, thank you, Ana Lucia. Before I start, I'm actually going to place some links into the chat. Oh, let's see here. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, I'm gonna actually do it when I come out of screen share. You'll be able to follow up on any of the programs that I'm discussing today. I'm here representing the Office of Public Scholarship and Engagement. We're a university-wide office building and supporting meaningful relationships between communities and UC Davis scholars that work together for the public good. We serve all colleges and schools, doing work that is publicly engaged, community engaged, and in the context of this webinar, we would call that high bar. Let me just tell you about a few of the programs that are going on in our office to support this kind of work. And there we go. Okay, there's a little delay in that remote. So one of those services is Community Campus Connect. In a nutshell, we have a service that creates pathways for partnerships between university and non-university partners to work together. We literally match individuals, organizations, and institutions who want to work together. And as an example of this, we are one of the several teams on this campus that support the Sacramento Valley College Corps in connecting hundreds of undergraduates with paid internships in our region. And you'll be able to check out Community Campus Connect in a moment when I drop that into the chat box, and learn more about these services, either from the perspective of a university member who wants to connect with the community, or a community member who wants to connect with the university. Another one of our programs, or several of our programs, are faculty facing. And so I'd just like to feature our Faculty Fellows programs here. We have two of these, the Public Scholarship Faculty Fellows program and the Community Engaged Learning Faculty Fellows program. The Public Scholarship Fellows program supports faculty who are doing publicly engaged work as part of their research. And the Community Engaged Learning program supports faculty who are pulling those community engaged opportunities into their teaching and learning. Both of these programs offer 6 months of support and training, essentially a community of practice around these goals. And our current Public Scholarship Faculty Fellows program applications are open and in fact are due today. So if you know anybody who might be interested in this program, please send along the information to them. As part of talking about those programs, I'd like to just highlight one of our university leaders in community engaged scholarship, Dr. Milman Harrison. He has done both of our Faculty Fellows program, both the Community Engaged Learning as well as the Public Scholarship Fellows program. And his quote here really captures that he was seeking a greater degree of integration between his teaching, his community engagement, and his research agenda. He has really taken a holistic approach of pulling all of those aspects of faculty life into sort of one very powerful and impactful theme. And he is now the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education on our campus. I'll also highlight our Public Impact Research Initiative. This is an annual grants program that we provide funds for research that involves non-university partners. We give out a set of these every year, and they're often the seed funding that get a larger initiative or program off the ground. You can see some stats here about what we've funded over the past 3 years, including supporting a whole range of projects across different schools and colleges with dozens of non-university partners. And in highlighting that program, I just wanted to call out the work of Dr. Catherine Kim. Kathy is affiliated with both the medical school and the School of Nursing, and her PERI project supported a partnership with the Yurok tribe in Northern California, addressing tribal food sovereignty. And in talking about the project, she said to us that she feels this program is changing the perception of what a university community partnership can do and can be. And those PERI funds did allow her to develop larger externally funded grants with the tribe. Okay, the past couple programs I've been telling you about are geared towards our faculty and researchers. And of course, so in UC Davis language, those are our Senate and Federation members, but we also have graduate student programs. We have a graduate student fellow annually in the office. It's a full year GSR doing research with the office. And we have the new Public Scholars for the Future program. This is a partnership with Grad Studies. It's cohort based, it's a 6-month-long program and provides both a class in community engaged research as well as mentorship. And in wrapping up here, I wanted to leave you with a quote from one of our faculty fellows, Keith Wattenpaw. He really captures here of like why we do the work that we do. That's really featured in this webinar today. Imagining our relationship to the world at large, how we can use what we study, work on, and explore, plus share the excitement and enthusiasm we have for our subjects with others with the goal of contributing to a more peaceful and prosperous world. I love that vision, and if you haven't already, you should check out and support Keith's Engaged Scholarship that he leads, the Article 26 Backpack Project, which provides opportunities for refugees and those facing other human rights crises. And I'll just end by saying that in our office, we've been very excited to be able to partner with the Office of Research, the Feminist Research Institute, the Center for Regional Change, the Institute for the Environment. And I'll also just add in there also Global Affairs and Grand Challenges in the excellent work that is being done on this campus and support the efforts of HIBAR. I will echo Scott's words at the beginning of the webinar that it would be great if more UC Davis members joined those working groups that HIBAR is running. I'm in one of them and it's been a great experience. And so I will encourage my Davis colleagues to join in. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And now we have a moderated Q&A portion. And my notes say, Tessa, that we had you as the moderator. Do you want to start fielding questions? There's some stuff in the chat already, and then we can. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, that's great. If people would like to place their questions in the chat, that would be lovely. I appreciate there were some comments in here about progress that's being made in Canadian institutions, which is great. So if anybody would like to comment or reflect on that, that would be a great starting point.
One thing that I can share on that is I mentioned the Environmental Justice Fellows Program. What I didn't mention is that I'm actually really co-leading that program with a woman's Lika Josiah Talbot, who has worked in government, policy, law, nonprofits, really has an amazing career. And that co-leading that we're doing, I want to say, has just been amazing. And I think there's so much potential, particularly for growing policy-oriented and community-impacted research in informing those sorts of partnerships.
So we have a question in the chat that is maybe directed in terms of getting more involved in HIBAR. How can faculty and researchers connect with other HIBAR members to advance cooperative national and international research? Maybe one of the HIBAR folks would like to take that.
I'm only putting on my video to indicate that the HIBAR Research Alliance would like to answer the question, but I don't think I'm the best person. And I'm going to suggest that maybe Scott might like to do that.
Well, I imagine that some of the programs that we're contemplating where we bring campuses together around particular themes, that may draw researchers at any level, faculty, student, various levels around particular research themes, might enable people to meet people who are inclined toward HIBAR work, but wouldn't have other occasions necessarily to be in contact with each other. So in facilitating HIBAR projects across the disciplines, one of our notions was that we could orchestrate events that would convene researchers around topics that would draw people together. I have mixed feelings about that. And in a sense, I feel this could be helpful. On the other hand, I know that often we find our research collaborators organically within our disciplines, and that's what we're accustomed to doing. However, I guess the advantage of actually orchestrating an event around a particular theme is that we might be able to draw people who are intrinsically interested in HIBAR-like activities that don't just want to do business as usual as researchers working with fellow academics, but would like to find trans-sectoral partners, which is in the spirit of HIBAR and other types of publicly engaged research. So we have organized a few of these events. The pandemic has complicated our convening of multi-institutional events, but Washington State University and the University of Idaho did a virtual research forum of this kind, and we can imagine doing more of these. In fact, through the Collaborative Action Group, number 2, focused on facilitating HIBAR projects, I could imagine a team of people, perhaps a task group of some kind, working on organizing some of these gatherings that would enable this type of interaction and networking.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to go to Sarah, and then I have another question that chat will go to.
Yeah, just really quick comment. I really strongly agree that some of the best partnerships really emerge organically. And I also want us to recognize how that way of creating partnerships can actually often unintentionally perpetuate historic inequities because it often can be exclusive of people that haven't historically been in those spaces. So I want to simultaneously say, yes, we need to continue to foster those organic connections, and we need to find think critically about how to create new spaces that are more inclusive than research culture has been historically to make that happen.
Thank you. I'm going to come to you in just a second. Isabel, I'm going to point out, so Keith posted in the chat, does HIBAR include both corporate commercial partners and NGO or nonprofits? And we did get an answer from Mark David on this, the answer being yes, but I'm just wondering if any of the other HIBAR folks want to give voice to that at all? Examples of partnerships that HIBAR is supporting?
Well, if I could just make one comment, and really it's to return to Sarah's point, which really resonates with me. And I'd like to suggest, Sarah, I don't know if you'd be willing, but it might be interesting if you could perhaps attend a meeting within the HRA, perhaps with our management group, for example, and just talk that over. It really does concern me, and I think we probably aren't doing enough to address these factors that just aren't apparent but are really there. And the only thing I would also add to that on the positive side is that even though the HRA by design is a small organization, it is a relatively diverse one. And so, when you sort of look at degrees of separation, how close are we linked to people we'd like to be connected with? A small organization that comes from all over the continent, or even all over the world to some degree, probably has the power to help do that in ways that we can't do within our own networks. But we haven't really addressed the issue that you brought up. So we'd love to pursue that, if you'd be willing.
Love it. Love the connections that are being made here. Isabel, I'm going to you next.
I was just going to build on Sarah's comment. and Lauren's now. That's actually one of the motivations behind trying to develop a campus-wide climate coalition. The question is always, why do we need it and where are the resources? But in fact, it permits for a much more inclusive environment for those who might not know how to partner with already well-established and leading institutes. That it's not, and that's a lot of feedback that we've heard over the longer run. And initially, there's obviously another angle to that, and that's to increase our brand and our profile. But this inclusivity component is really important, not just even from diversity, but just a diversity of voices that may not normally or not easily step up.
That's great. Catherine and Bernadette, I'm just noticing this great dialogue happening in the chat. I'm wondering if for people who are not monitoring the chat, can you sort of make the point that you were making there out loud?
Yeah, happy to. So one of the points that was brought up was a colleague of ours who's talking about comparison to some Canadian universities and saying that, that's really exciting to do some funded policy-oriented research. So what I was saying is we were actually having a side conversation muted, and we were talking about how there's traditional national research funding, big ones being the National Science Foundation and National Institutes for Health, for example. However, those really indeed focus on research, and something that's been really great for our center, and frankly, because we can actually do projects that are of a smaller scale rather than the millions and tens of millions, we can work in the six figures of size of research projects, that state agencies in California, again, I have to admit, we're a large state and we're very well funded, that they are not investing in research for research's sake. They're investing in research because they want to know more and do data-driven work. And in fact, some of the greatest work that we do, Institute for Transportation Studies, I imagine that the Institute for Environment as well, but several other groups will work with state agencies, not just to develop policies, but to implement programs once policies are in place. So I really want to draw that distinction.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hold on, I got to catch up on what's going on in the chat here.
So one question that came up in the chat is the new NSF Engines program, which is of course really large, and everybody's very excited about it, trying to figure out exactly what it is. We're holding a session that's for UC Davis campus participants next Friday to try to see if people would like to coalesce around different topic areas. It's really brainstorming. As that happens, of course, UC Davis always welcomes potential partnerships with other groups as well. But I think that would largely be driven by the faculty within different nuclei of topic areas. I suspect that there will be more than one submission that comes out from the UC Davis campus. The initial concept papers are not metered in any way. There's no limit on them, so the groups can submit these. Excuse me. At the letter of intent stage, however, only one submission can go from the campus, and so from that perspective, if more than one concept proposed paper from individual groups gets recommended for advancement by the NSF, then at the letter of intent stage, there will be a limited call for submissions. But right now, we're just leaving it open so that we can get the most diverse responses and also give faculty the opportunity to connect. And stay tuned, there'll be an email later today on this. And then also this will be hosted by our office at the same time next week.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'll answer a question that Scott posed in the chat about recognition via awards of this work. And yes, there are several awards within the university hosted by the Office of Research and the Chancellor's Office and other institutes that reward and recognize this public impact or publicly engaged work. I'll add that our office has been proposing and developing a new award that would acknowledge both the university researcher and the community partner. And so we are hoping, in the future to add to that portfolio of awards, one that really recognizes the depth and the importance of those partnerships. I guess the other thing I'd add is that our faculty are recognized nationally and internationally by external awards for this work as well, which is something that we're very proud of.
And there's a question in the chat, but I'm going to jump the line and build on what Tessa was saying, and also really elevate a model that Sarah shared. So she talked about with their Environmental Justice Fellows program that there's a co-lead between an academic partner and a community partner. And when the CRC did some stakeholder engagement and qualitative research around the model that eventually led to the creation of the Office of Public Scholarship and Engagement, a really exciting model that emerged was that co-leadership. So Catherine talked about co-creating with faculty, students, and in this case, the Yolo County community partner. So thinking about ways to co-create, bring people along. Several of you who presented today also talked about trust. So it's long-term relationships, it's trust that can have some of the greatest kind of public engagement outcomes.
Thank you for adding that. I'll read out Jenny Phelps' question here, wondering if we are encountering or supporting PhD students who are engaged in public scholarship to produce novel artifacts such as documentaries, websites, policy papers, and integrating those as core content in dissertations. And so I think actually several of us could answer this question, so I encourage others to chime in. I will say yes, we are seeing this, and sort of the flexibility and the philosophies around what can be incorporated into dissertations is being determined by individual graduate groups. And so the cultures of those graduate groups, of like how supportive they are of these types of artifacts, varies across the campus. And so it's a good campus discussion, university discussion to have. I'm not sure if my colleagues would like to chime in on examples there. Isabel. Oh, Isabel, you're muted.
Yeah, the classic Zoom comment, right? That's a very good point, and I think and the culture varies by discipline, right, and such. But that's one of our goals from the Environmental and Climate Justice Hub, is to provide opportunities for students, undergraduate and graduate, where through fellowships or scholarships, where they can engage maybe even independently or complementary to their research, and be able to do these sorts of things, whether it actually directly relates to the dissertation or not.
Thank you, Isabel. I think our CRC colleagues have something to add.
I'll just add that I think with the PhD students, it's trickier because we're preparing them for the academic job market, which still wants to see publications, and you don't want to set them up for not being successful. But with the master's students, especially, I'm chairing the community development grad group, and that grad group has a long history of very engaged research projects, like designing food system emergency plans. Just thinking of some recent grads. So there are some grad groups on campus who their goal is to make that happen, and I think they do a really great job of it. And you graduated.
I'm an alum.
There we go. Look at this.
Yeah, that's a great addition, and I'll just echo something that's in the chat, which is, some of this requires rethinking of what we're thinking about for where the trajectories of PhD students, because not all of our PhD students are seeking academic employment, and so thinking about those different parts of the dissertation in large part depends on the career trajectory and hopes of that PhD student. And I'm going to turn to Sarah and then Ana Lucia.
Yeah, I'll also add that this question of like what counts as research comes up, in a really deep way in the Asking Different Questions program, which I should say is has a strong discussion component. And so students have a lot of opportunity for reflection. And one of the things that we actually teach them as part of that are collective organizing strategies and how to think about, and the reason for that is because, yes, like in many fields, if they do engage in the kind of research that, you know, in a sense, our training is pushing them towards, they're very likely to face, it can be a risky endeavor. And so part of what we talk about that very explicitly with the students and help them to work together to think of strategies of how they can strengthen their position, protect themselves, and really, you know, work in collaboration with others, because that's absolutely necessary for a lot of the paradigm changes that program that we're doing and these students who are taking it are committed to.
Thank you. Ana Lucia.
I just wanted to also comment and ask a comment and a question. UC Davis, for example, has a fairly large, very active, and very intellectually engaged research development staff community. So this is the staff that supports faculty in competitive intelligence, helping them figure out how to fund their research, bringing information to them about potential partnerships, helping them develop their proposal, and just trying to help them lower their activation energy and be more competitive and be positioned in the best possible way to secure their funding and have a very successful research program. So does HiBAR contemplate how that staff can contribute to the mission of the HRA? And then just to pitch that if you're a PhD student contemplating that you don't want to be in academia, research development is also a very rewarding career path where your advanced degree really gives you that extra boost to be able to support our researchers and faculty, and many occasions, make intellectual contributions to research programs and proposal development. So comment and question.
I sort of feel like I should respond, but if I do, I think I have to say, first of all, when you ask a question about the HRA, you're part of the answer, because UC Davis is a very significant portion of the HRA. And the question you brought up, Ana Lucia, sounds to me, again, like a really fertile ground for conversation. And this is something I think that we should, based on this wonderful series of discussions today, I think we should consider more, is maybe we could come up with a mechanism, an informal mechanism, where ideas like the one that you just mentioned could be discussed by anybody at any of the member campuses, or of course we're open to all, but a really thoughtful, targeted discussion on exactly that point. So I don't have certainly a quick answer, although perhaps I'll just ask any of the other folks that are more centrally involved with the HRA if they have any thoughts they'd like to add to what I've just said. Not hearing any, I'll assume that there's no argument with the suggestion that we actually take this up, and we will. So, and would you be willing to participate, Ana Lucia, if we? Wonderful, thank you.
So I'll just note there's a question in the chat asking whether UC entities have published studies of demonstrating the benefits of HiBAR-like research or documents describing the aspects of how to do this kind of cross-sectoral research, and whether those could be shared with the HRA. And I think the answer is certainly yes. And I think we already got some answers in the chat on that. And then I'll just add that I think it would be great if we had a Davis representative on that newer action group on metrics and assessment. I think there are things that we would love to learn and share in that group. So maybe we can connect on that after the call.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. I want to thank our staff for helping to organize this. I want to thank everybody for attending and all of your great comments and questions. And I think we have, kicked off and completed another really successful seminar as a part of a series of discussions. So this isn't just limited to today. So really grateful for everybody's participation. Ana Lucia is putting into the chat the next time that we have a team research session is June 3rd, and that's for our UC Davis colleagues or others who want to join. There'll be an invitation. And thanks everybody for being here today. The NSF engines, there's going to be an email from the Office of Research that comes out later today. And we'll be talking about an on-campus brainstorming session that will be remote. It'll be by Zoom. We'd really love to have anybody who can participate join in. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.